us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Thank you for coming. If you haven't noticed, we have a new setup, thanks to Heather and everybody at ECAT and Charlie's wife for the beautiful table skirts. So hopefully you can all hear us better at home and better in the audience. And yeah, so let's start. We have Heather with the town administrator report. We haven't met in a few weeks, so there's probably a lot of information to share.
Thank you, Liz. So the first piece, as Liz pointed out to everyone, is the Board of Selectmen room. We've been working on this for probably over a month at this point. It's taken a while to get everything put together. We got a lot of complaints over the past several months that folks could not hear us well at home. There was concern over audio, there was sometimes concern over video, but most of it was audio. Folks felt that they couldn't actually hear what was happening, especially folks in the audience. They were unable to hear anyone speaking. So we talked about it, we came up with some different ideas. We worked very closely with ECAT and also with a lot of volunteers. So we have a couple different components we looked at. One was sound. We purchased the speakers you see up on the wall for the room, and we also got these lovely gooseneck microphones from Norseman out of Northampton, and we utilized PEG access funds, public education programming for the funds to purchase these. The next thing you see is the tables. We used to have a lot more tables in the room. We took out a bunch of them. We actually just focused on 3 main ones and a side one for our clerk table. And we got some table skirts for them. Table skirts cost us about $50 or $60 for the material. And with kind work of a volunteer, we actually were able to have them all sewed and put together as table skirts, thanks to Kathy Kanicki. And then we have our chairs you see behind all the desks. They all match. For the first time ever, we don't have mismatched chairs in the Board of Selectmen room, which is kind of nice. The chairs were actually donated to us by the East Hampton Savings Bank. We also have a few more things coming from them over the next couple weeks, so that will be nice. The podium I'm standing at tonight with the town seal at the front of it, it's a nice addition to the room. It actually allows folks to come up and stand here when speaking. It actually allows audience members to speak into a microphone so folks in the audience can hear them, again projected by the speakers up front, and hopefully audience members at home to be able to hear better as well. This was donated by the Kanicki family. The projector on the wall, we actually moved it. If folks notice, it's no longer hanging behind where Liz is sitting. It's actually on the side wall. That took a little bit of work over there, but it actually seemed to work out pretty good. We also have Wi-Fi in this room now. Couple complaints we've had from some of the volunteer organizations was that they were unable to actually connect to the information they needed here. The COA Wi-Fi is spotty at best at times, so Art Lawrence actually donated a Wi-Fi router that he wasn't using to this room. Now we have Wi-Fi, so it's kind of nice. Many thanks go out to those who made this possible for the many hours on Saturday, Sunday mornings for what we like to call some assembly required. A bunch of teamwork and many donations to the town. In no particular order, we have the entire Kanicki family, and I do mean pretty much entire Kanicki family, between Charlie, Chuck, and Kathy. Janine Domina, our town clerk, was here as well, trudging in through the snowstorms, and Art Lawrence. On a second note, volunteerism. Just an update from some things. Norris School Committee, we have a most recent resignation this morning. Melissa Kelly has resigned due to personal reasons, so that is now an open position. Again, like all of our open elected positions, they are filled until the next election, so that position is open until May. We have some possible interested folks who may be submitting their letters of interest, hopefully over the next couple days, we'll see. The next opening we have is the Board of Health. Ron Lauren had resigned a couple weeks ago, back in January, so that's now been posted. We have started to get some letters of interest in on that.
When is that open till? When is that?
That's all set. We can fill it at any time at this moment. I believe Board of Health, I thought, was meeting tonight. I'm not too sure. I have to double check, but I believe they were going to discuss the letter of interest they had already received. Historical Commission also has an opening. Have not heard any interested parties on that one yet. Greenway Committee has received a letter of interest, and they are talking to that individual at this time. And the other thing I keep getting feedback on is the Cable Advisory Board. We do have a cable contract that is up for renewal in 2016, and Kathy from ECAT has kept the conversation going with me regarding, getting this Cable Advisory Committee up and running as a great idea to make sure that all voices are heard and we are staying on top of things when we're renewing the contract with Charter or perhaps Comcast, whoever it may be as we move forward. That's actually all I have for my little report. Everything else will fall into budget and a zillion other things as we proceed forward.
Okay. We have select board updates and liaison reports. School committee met a couple of weeks ago after the town meeting to distribute and spend the $75,000 that the town voted to move over to the Norris budget to help with the net school spending. They made some recommendations. The specials teachers, art, music, gym, and library have all been restored from .8 to full-time for the remainder of the year. And then we have to see how that goes with their budget next year. They are expanding their special ed program in a couple of different ways. I don't want to misspeak and say it the wrong way. They did purchase a new POS system for the cafeteria, which will be helpful as far as billing is concerned and parents being able to see what their children are eating and spending and how much is in their account. And the benefit of that is that the program will allow students at Norris and their balances to be transferred to the high school. So we currently have 5 elementary schools and a high school, and all of those operate separately. So that will all flow up to the high school. And non-union employees that did not receive a raise in September were awarded that 2% raise retroactively. They're meeting again the end of the month. And again, there is an opening on the school committee, so if anybody feels moved or feels like they have something to offer, they're certainly looking for willing participants. Anybody else?
Can I just go back a step?
Yes.
When Heather was talking about all the improvements, she mentioned the Kinnicky, she mentioned art, and obviously Heather was involved. I think formally would really like to thank them because I think it's a great improvement. It's a lot of time and effort went into it.
I do. Thank you on behalf of all of us, I assume, for all your hard work. I walked in and was really excited to see the room like this. I think it looks formal. I think it looks professional. And I think it will really do us some good going forward. So thank you.
Not to mention, it's comfortable, thank you.
The chairs are growing on me.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was.
Thank you. Next, we have reports from departments, boards, and committees. We have Janine Domina here, the town clerk, to talk about some updates on the caucus and annual town elections.
Good evening. Janine Domina, Town Clerk. Well, it's hard to believe, but it's that time of the year again when we start thinking about the annual town election, which includes the Citizens Caucus, the town meeting. The caucus is scheduled for March 19th, 7 p.m., right here in this room. Our town bylaws state that the annual town election be held on the first Monday in May, which brings us to May 4th. The annual town meeting for the third Tuesday in May will be May 19th. With that being said, there will be some changes this year. There will be a requirement of being nominated. There are 2 ways to be nominated for your name to be placed on the ballot in May. The first option, candidates can pull nomination papers, which are now available in my office. A minimum of 20 signatures of registered voters from Southampton have to be on, is required. And the papers need to be back in my office by 5 o'clock on March 16th. The other way is candidates can have someone nominate them from the floor at the caucus on March 19th. Candidates with the two highest number of votes for each seat receiving at least 8% of the total votes cast at the caucus will be placed on the election ballot. These candidates have to have a written acceptance. They have to see me after, and they have to accept it within 72 hours for their names to be placed on the ballot. So that's it, and if anyone has questions, feel free to stop by.
So
Okay.
in the instance, you said the two people that get 8% of the votes, or the most number of votes, will be placed on the ballot. What if there are two seats open? So for example, in May, there will be two seats open on the Board of Selectmen. So what happens then?
Right, according to town council, he said we have to specify, everyone. So you can't just put all the names in the hat for the top two. There's two different seats, two separate seats.
So only 4 people could actually run for 2 seats. Is that true? 2 people for each seat?
We're talking about at the caucus, yes. As far as nomination papers go, anyone can.
see. So you could have 6 people get 20 registered voter signatures, and then the top 2 at the caucus would also appear on there.
Exactly.
I see,
Yeah.
okay.
Can we put that procedure somewhere on? the
It is on the town's
On the town
website.
So,
website.
okay, 'cause it's kind of hard to write it all down. Good,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank
Are there any
you.
other questions? No. Great. Next, we have Charlie McDonald with the COMCOM to talk about the DCR application for the Whittemore property.
Thank you. I represent the Conservation Commission this evening, and the message I have is that we were able, by the end of last month, to submit a trail grant to the Department of Conservation and Recreation. It's a fairly substantial application. It is, requires a certain amount of diligence. I would like to distribute the economic costs associated with this. Just pass that down, please. We're asking for $84,000. It's subdivided into the activities that are listed there. The first page is the most important. The rest of the pages just outline the materials that are going to be needed. So it gives you an indication of the extensive nature of the application. And that page shows on the first page the activities, the materials used, and the labor. And the labor is assumed to be professional. This is the first time the Conservation Commission has applied for such a grant, at least in my understanding. And it's fairly complicated. We've been encouraged, because of it's a joint application between East Hampton and Southampton. And the main components, as listed on the first page, the most expensive components will be a parking lot at the end of Meadow Lane, will be a bridge over the Manhattan to East Hampton, and also a sort of a trail with bog bridges through the wetlands to that bridge on the Southampton side. So that's basically the message. We've got it done. We've got it in, and we hope to hear whether we're successful at the end of this year, sometime in October. And this is an 80-20 reimbursement from the state, so we're going to have to go after the 20% via town meetings or a council meeting in Southampton and East Hampton, respectively. Also note, in this application, we have about a dozen letters of support from various political figures, land trust organizations, as well as the administration of this town, a letter of support from this commission, from this select board, as well as the mayor and a number of other officials in East Hampton. So that's the message. It's up and running. We'll hope for the best.
I just have one question about the funding. It's an 80-20 split. Does that mean between East Hampton and Southampton, they have to come up with 10 and we come up with 10, or do we both have to come up with 20?
No, no. We
Okay.
come up with 10.
Okay.
It might not be 10-10. It may be 15-5 for that 20%, mainly because most of the work is, the East Hampton side has a trail right down to the river right now. We don't.
I see. Okay.
So that's something that will have to be defined. We have to get a response. You know, this is fairly complicated, and and there'll be a number of people looking at these numbers very closely, so we'll may have to do some adjustments in time.
Great.
And we intend, by the way, we need a lot of volunteer work for this. It would be appreciated in any case, and we intend, based on council, to have an article in the Gazette, if we get the money, have an article in the Gazette, as well as posters up looking for volunteers to help us in this.
Is it something the Boy Scouts can be involved in?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Can I add-
We have all the permits also already in place, thanks to Conservation Works that helped us develop this application.
Would it be applicable for part of our funding to get businesses to sponsor spots along the way? And, yeah,
We could go through a number of mechanisms like that. We just haven't done that, but we certainly,
bet there'd be a lot of people that'd be willing to do that.
Right, can you just picture a little bench on the trail with a
That's
little name
correct,
plaque
yeah.
on it?
Or a little trail marker sign?
yeah,
Think that would, we could get our
signage.
money that way?
Signage, yes. Some of those components are listed there. They could take on the responsibility of supporting those.
I think we know some people who are really good at sponsorship, so perhaps we should
That-
talk to
yeah.
them in the future.
Yeah, and anything they can do helping us try and get this up and running. But the big thing is, will it be acceptable to the DCR?
Great.
How long do you think before we know that?
It'll be the end of this year sometime.
So
Take
we're a
some
little
time.
ways away.
These 4 applications, you know, they're fairly substantial. They have to be distributed across the state. And there's a number of towns who are vying for this money. But we are I understand we're in a pretty good position based on the cooperative nature between East Hampton and Southampton.
Thank you for your work in the committee.
Yeah, thank you. This has been going on a long time. Thank you. Next, we have open time for the public. Anybody? All right, moving on. We have some continued business. We're going to talk about the policies, the Board of Selectmen policies, which you have a packet of papers, I think.
They were in a previous meeting.
They were in a previous meeting. So you had a package of papers in your iPads to review, and they were current Board of Selectmen policies, approved and not approved. Go ahead, Heather.
All right, so my recommendation would be to review these annually, especially the ones we approve. Some of these policies go all the way back to 2011, and we haven't touched or looked at them, my best guess since. To the best of our records, we currently have about 7 current Board of Selectmen policies in place and 5 draft policies that are just kind of floating out there. Just to review basically what we have. So we have a free cash policy that we just passed in December, money transferred at special town meeting. In accordance with that, everything's going fine with that. We should review it probably next January, if not sooner. We have an emergency weather policy that we just put in place again this past December, which was probably one of the smartest things we've done so far because we've currently used it 3 times in the past 3 weeks. So that was fantastic. We've done it concurrent with closings of surrounding towns, communities, and school closings. We've consulted with the Highway Department, Emergency Management, and usually spoke with the Board of Selectmen either making the decision or immediately thereafter. The next policy I have down here is, where'd it go? It's on a different sheet, how rude. There we go, okay. We've notified workers via the phone tree, and we're also starting to use the Code Red contact section, which is pretty cool of our reverse 911 program. Residents were notified via the Code Red system, website, Facebook, sign on the door, and a phone number message that we were closed, and they were also provided information of phone numbers for WEMCO, which is now Eversource, phone numbers for the police dispatch and when to call 911. We are still working on getting permission to post on the main news stations. We got that information today, so should we have a snowstorm, knock on wood, tomorrow, we can actually post on ABC and other local news stations, 22 News and the like, that we are closed if that was the case. We have been staying in contact closely with Barbara at the library to ensure that they're closing when we're closing. We've also been staying very close in touch with the superintendent of schools to know what's happening before everything's going public on their end. And we've been keeping up to date with the highway to know what's happening with when things are getting plowed, and, you know, if we are closed, we're trying to restructure resources so they're not over here plowing us when we're not open. The next posting we have here is postings of meetings. My recommendation for this policy is to sit down and work with the town clerk to make sure we update it. We actually would probably be wise to reflect mytowngovernment.org as our official posting, as we talked about in previous meetings. The next policy we have here is agenda prep for the Board of Selectmen. This policy was last updated or created back in October 2011. I can honestly tell you, I don't think we actually have our agenda in this format, and there's many pieces on here I wasn't even aware of until we found the policy. So this is an example of why it's probably helpful for us, and I don't know if many of the Board of Selectmen members were even aware this policy existed, and I think all but one were not on the board at the time that it came about. Some things on this, I would recommend the Board of Selectmen reviews this with comments for next Board of Selectmen meeting, because it directly pertains to this board and how we meet. Question is whether the board wishes to put a meeting time requirement for action on all agenda items with exceptions as currently written. There's actually a part of the policy on here that suggests that the Board of Selectmen take no action on any item on the agenda unless it has previously been on a prior meeting agenda. Some boards, some towns have this, some don't. We meet bi-weekly. Is it feasible? Is it reasonable? That's up to the Board of Selectmen to decide.
Is the list that you're talking about now is all on your iPads under Board of Selectmen policy, so,
There's no, they don't the policy doesn't currently exclude certain things or include certain things. It just currently has a statement as to what this part of the policy is, saying that, you know, no action shall be taken on anything.
so I guess I would just suggest we take this list and read it, and that should be on our agenda to approve or change anything on
Make
these
any
policies.
necessary modifications.
So are you suggesting that's the skeleton of meetings going forward, and we can add and,
Well, regardless of whether it is or whether it's something the Board of Selectmen feels is necessary to continue
Right, maybe we don't
following,
even
or
need
to
it.
even just revoke altogether, because it's a policy the Board of Selectmen at one time as a body passed, so it should be respected as a document, and whether it's something the board continues to feel it should be complied with, or maybe it needs to be modified, because maybe it's outdated.
so you want a decision, basically? Okay.
Yep.
And plus, I think it's helpful, you know, this year we do have, you know, 2 spots up for reelection, whether both or 1 or 2, what have you, run, or whether we end up with new folks, same folks, what have you. I think it's good governance and information that's already on the table for folks to know, okay, this is a policy that's in place, here's some guidance as to what the board is responsible for, here's what, some guidance as to how the board is going to operate. But that's my recommendation. The current layout of the agenda is actually put in this document as well. I have proposed amendments to the current format that I actually handed out to everybody. It's this lovely little sheet. I'd also recommend just reviewing this for next week. This is my recommendation. We've actually established most of this in our modification to the agenda outline back in March or April 2014. A couple of changes I did to this. We've spoken to many people. Liz and I've had several conversations with this. I have actually had several conversations even with the moderator on this, the idea of moving open time for the public up to the first item on the agenda, but giving it a time limit. Sometimes we've got way behind in our meetings because we've had open time for the public that's gone for an hour, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and it is really important to have constituents come and speak about what's important, but one of the problems is it's a working meeting. Usually most of the time what ends up happening is things that are important, they end up coming to my desk, or folks end up coming to talk to me anyway. And sometimes folks need to be heard, and that's important, and it's great. But sometimes if we have a controlled time limit, we can continue on what we need to do. And a lot of times folks are going to be asked to go see the town administrator afterwards, or maybe it's such a great idea, it really is, let's put it on for the next Board of Selectmen agenda. Let's make it an official item.
Can you divide one topic in 2 different times during the meeting? You know, a truncated, open to the public, then if we have more time, open to the public?
So
So-
that was, Oh, go ahead.
Liz and I spoke about this, and we actually took that idea directly into consideration, and we did that on this outline, John. If you look at it, item number 1's open time for the public, first 10 minutes maximum. So, you know, if everyone comes and you say, okay, it's a maximum of 10 minutes, so if we start at 6:30, we're only going to 6:40, and at 6:40, we're done open time for the public. But Susie Citizen comes in at 7:15, because that's when she shows up, and we're still in the meeting, and we're item 6.52 for the bill warrant. Item 7 is open time for the public, 5 minutes maximum. Because a lot of times folks will come in, well, unfortunately, I wasn't able to be here at the beginning. Is there still an open time for the public? Well, we can have a second section, but we still have, you know, a structured meeting, everything, everyone knows what's happening when, and there's still time for that to happen. But then, again, this is just my recommendation. It's up to the board to decide what they wish and not wish to adopt.
I'm going to say what my concern has always been about this. When people come in, they can't always come at 6:30. They can't always come at the end, and they feel like what they have to say is really important and deserves our attention. I think that changing the structure of this, of the meeting, is important, because she's right. We can get tied up in very long conversations saying the same things over and over again, when really there isn't a decision that we can make about it anyway, because it's not on the agenda. I like to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak, you know, even from the audience. And I think changing this will take some time, but what we need to get in the habit of is having this at the beginning, having it at the end, and then saying, thank you for your comments, let's get you on the next agenda. Because to continue to talk about the same thing over and over again without being able to come to a decision is what holds us up. But I don't like the idea of having it either only at the beginning or only at the end, because chances are you just want to come in and say that and leave, or you were somewhere else and you're coming now and you want to make sure you're heard. So that's just my 2 cents, but certainly something that if everybody could take a look at that agenda and bring it to the next meeting, we can decide what we really want to do with it. And then just making sure that people in the audience know every meeting. You know, we're not going to spend an hour talking about everything you want to talk about. If it's that important, you will get it on the agenda. And changing that will take some time, but.
I almost think, 5 minutes is not enough time for anything, but whatever time we decide, you almost could limit a person's speaking time too. And that may help, because there may be several people out there who want to say something. And I hate, it's frustrating to watch somebody say, I want to say something, and somebody ties it up for 15 minutes and all
Right.
the time's gone. So maybe there's a way to
And
do that.
so also, in fairness to them, from us, a disclaimer at the beginning of open time in the public that says, please give us what, your basic,
Yeah.
what is your concern, and then we can be prepared for it at our next meeting, because you can't tell you yes or no right now anyway.
Can we ask George, one of our meeting, he attends every meeting here, if he can contribute something?
George, do you have an opinion? Right over here. But I would love if you came to the podium to speak, because otherwise no one can hear you.
Well, one of the things I think concerns us.
Right here, I have a spot, nice for you.
We would like to change the structure so that you came to the podium, sir.
This will stop people from wanting to talk, though.
He deserves.
Thank you.
See you at home.
And hear you.
Who you are.
Hey, George.
Star in the next movie, right? How to Build a Firehouse. Well, one of the things that concerned me was, and I will look at this, we go to 2 or 3 items, and we have open time for the public in the beginning, all right? And I think there should be open time for the public in 2 or 3 different areas, right? And if it's not on the agenda, I think she might have something about, keeping it to 5 minutes. Because I've sat in here, and I didn't say anything, but other people have quite a bit to say. And if it's not on the agenda, then bring it up in the next meeting.
Right, and that would be helpful to have it, at the beginning and the end, and so that way we can either say, your concern is a true concern, and we need to talk about it as a group, right? And
Yes.
get it on the next agenda.
But I've been
You-
concerned for a while about open time of the public.
In the beginning?
So close to the beginning.
So more than once,
I agree.
more than
about
once.
that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so something to think about. On the same topic, we need to think about not only a format for the agenda, but a structure of the meetings, because I think given this new, more formal atmosphere, we need to run a more formal meeting. And there's a couple different ways to do that, but I think we need to give that some thought also.
Would you like that on the next agenda?
I think it should all be rolled into one. Thanks. Can we
All right.
move on to private roads, or are we still on the other stuff?
I'm still on my policies.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so the next item was the uniform timesheets. I just recommend reviewing the policy and updating to reflect current practice, so I'll work on that. Working from home policy. So this was an interesting one. This one was developed in September 2011, and I'm not sure if it's been looked at since. But it's interesting because the policy pretty much prohibits folks from bringing any documents home that are from the office. So you can't take any correspondence home with you, any material, anything. And it would even probably suggest somewhere in it, you know, you're probably not supposed to be doing email from home, which doesn't seem to suit any purpose that was actually meant to address. My best guess is pretty much every department head does work from home. We probably don't do 40 hours of work from home, but we probably do the next 10 to 20 hours of the day and the week at home. I go home at the end of the day, I'm still checking emails, I'm still reading agreements, I'm still drafting policies, I'm still working on budgets, I'm still reviewing financial concepts, I'm reading. I mean, you could say not to bring anything home, but, I mean, either we're going to be in violation of the policy or we're not going to do any work to the extent that we
I
currently
just wonder
are.
if that work from home policy was meant to say, you know, you didn't come in on Monday and you say, I was working from home. Not so much, I mean, I think everyone probably, even I work from home, you know, so I'm wondering if we need to just incorporate that into the policy.
I think I meant in lieu of working here. You
Right.
can't work from home, so I think
Right.
just some wording.
I imagine you're 100% correct. Unfortunately, this is another one of my suggestions of why I think these need to probably be reviewed annually, because it might have just slipped through from 2011 to 2015.
So we'll
Didn't
fix
we
that.
just discuss this, like last month?
No,
Working
No.
from
you
home?
and I were on Policy and Procedures Committee, we dealt with it there.
Well, this one, but I
And
thought we
one
had,
of the things is we've looked at many of the towns around us, and this policy was because people were taking information home. Maybe there was no chain of custody or whatever, but information was going back and forth. And some of the other towns had rulings about doing work from home when there was an emergency. But the clause at home was if you had a workstation at your job site, then you were expected to work at that workstation to do that work. Now, it also came up that department heads do work at home, budgets and everything else. I don't think we ever had a problem with department heads or the senior person in an office taking the work home, but the rank and file, I don't think should be taking work home.
I also think that you got to differentiate between exempt and hourly, because technically, if you allow hourly to do work at home, they can come back to you maybe
Right.
6 months, a year, or 2 years later, and all of a sudden you owe them that compensation. So
Right,
I think what Heather's saying is we need to define this properly,
Right.
so everybody knows. Is that,
Yeah.
yes.
I just think it also suggests caution when creating a policy to remember that if you do create it, you need to remember to go back and review it at least annually to make sure it's really what you wanted in the first place.
and now we have a great town manager that will do that for us.
And not from home.
No, bring it up, I mean, every year.
Oh, sorry.
The next item is meal reimbursement, and the reason this one's here is just, this was created back in 2011, so it's the reimbursement for if you're going out and paying for lunch or dinner or something like that. Maybe you're at a conference or what have you. My only concern here is the fact that this is in place, but it's still reflecting costs and numbers from 2011. So it's outdated, hasn't been looked at. You know, if we're going to have a policy in place, we need to make sure it's actually reflective of the current times. I will look at it with PPB, and I'll also work with the Finance Commission to make sure it's up to date and makes sense. And it also needs to include a provision, we just had issues, or not issues so much as confusion the other day, whether or not it applied to some folks who are in the union. And if there's a union agreement, the union agreement supersedes this. And that needed to be clear, so make sure we include that provision on that.
So go home and read these.
Are we looking for maybe Heather to come up with some suggestions to bring to us, so, based on other towns' policies and procedures, so that then we can flesh it out? Or do you want us to create it from scratch, which will be tougher for us?
Did you already do some revisions to some of the stuff?
Well, those are just my suggestions of where I need to go with them. Usually whenever I revise a policy or whenever I'm asked to create a policy from scratch, I head out and I pop out an email to all of those on my listservs, depending on which is the most effective
Can we
one.
go that direction?
Yeah, we can do that direction, and what I can do in the next couple weeks is bring back a proposal of what I'd recommend based on what I've seen.
That'd be great.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Can I go on now? Okay. Yep.
Heather, how often is that used?
How often is,
Is the meal plan used?
I'm not sure. I've never used it. I generally, if I'm going out to lunch with people, I just pay for my own meal. I know it was used with the unions the other day for something, and other than that, I'm not sure. I'd have to contact Vicky or,
I mean, it was the
Joyce?
highway. I know they're reimbursed if they're working through, and meals are to be, paid for.
I don't know the answer, Ed. I can look into it.
I'm
I'm
just
not sure.
curious.
The next item on the agenda is private roads and plowing. Randall's not here, but Heather will speak on behalf of him. He has some concerns facing the highway department in regards to private roads, which roads should be plowed, which roads shouldn't be plowed, how long we've been plowing them, why we don't, why we should, maybe we shouldn't at all. Heather?
Yeah, so earlier before we came to this meeting, myself, Ed, and Randall actually met for a couple things, but this was item number 2. Ed actually might want to address this one more than I do, because he had further conversation with Randall over the major concerns.
This had to do with a private road, and what Randall wanted to know, what deeds going down there, and what doesn't prevent you from going down. Obviously, my past practice was if there's an emergency and vehicles need to get down there, you should go down and open it up. But these roads are private roads, they're not town-owned properties, they're private properties. And they assume a amount of responsibility of the ownership of those homes and whoever the deed holder is of that property. And we have, on many occasions, gone down and plowed private ways for emergency. We also, private ways are not built to any standards. There are subdivisions in town that we have plowed in the past that are close to being approved, but they were built to standards of the planning board. And those cases we have gone in. And there are a few roads that have citizens have taken the avenue to establish, I believe it's a law in the books that if you do certain items with the town in an emergency, the town can go down these private roads in an emergency to plow them and keep them clear for these areas. But they do incur costs from these people that are living on these private roads.
How many roads are we talking about?
Well, the other thing too is you've got common driveways too. The other thing, common driveways are driveways that are approved by the planning board. And you have 3 or 4 houses that live on it, and there's a deeded ownership of the driveway to one of the houses. And we've had many people come to the highway department to have us plow them, but these are not private roads, these are common driveways. I mean, these are not town-owned properties, these are private ways, and we don't go in there unless there's an absolute emergency for emergency vehicles.
Are some of these like very, very long?
Some are 800-900 feet, some, there's a couple of them, 10, they're only about 500 feet, there's some that's 1,200.
So if the owners don't get it plowed, they can't
But
get
they
out?
have, there's several of them that have been built over the course of the years. They have a deeded owner who's responsible for that, and they charge accordingly, but that's within their own group.
Sure.
But we do have private roads that we have gone down on many occasions and opened up for just what we're talking about, emergency purposes. But I think Randall's biggest concern was that there's an association that had this being done by their group, and now they want the town to do it.
Isn't there something we can do with the owners if they don't plow the roads, the public or private roads?
Probably.
Because it's
Well,
in an emergency, it's...
The problem is, when there's an emergency,
Yeah,
you know, we'll get a call from the police department or the fire department that they need a plow to open up to get somebody in the door.
So this issue's coming up because of one group that doesn't want to plow their own private road
No,
anymore?
it's been an ongoing thing. It has always been there. I mean, case in point, he has a new subdivision, which has been built to standards of the town. They want us to take it over. And what I usually told him, if it's very close to the acceptance of the town, I have no, you know, I felt we would not open it up. Because there's a lot of taxpayers living on it. And they don't get any of the service down there at this particular time until it's accepted. But we have on many occasions opened up private ways, not private ways, subdivisions that are about to be.
Do we charge back the owner, the contractor?
No, I haven't. On those occasions, no, I haven't.
Seems like we might.
Well, you could, but the point is,
I was just using taxpayers' money, that there's an advantage for a
yeah, they're
contractor.
also taxpayers.
Yeah.
So what does Randall need from us in regards to this tonight?
Well, what I told Randall was he's gotta use his own, good judgment. If it's an emergency, he needs to get down and open it road, so at least the ambulance and police department get down. But some of this particular street has a lot of windy roads all over the place, and, they're no bigger than a driveway, so we go down there, it's our liability. Okay.
So what do you suggest?
So my suggestion is do it on an emergency basis only, but these private ownerships of these driveways and, private roads need to be handled by the properties themselves.
And if the people don't like
There
that?
are reasons, there are areas you can go through. It's a process, you gotta present an article at town meeting, and you have to pay for all the costs associated with it. Okay?
Well, that seems reasonable if you live on a private road.
But I recommended to Heather, this is an ongoing thing, it's not gonna go away. Southampton has a lot of private roads because many of the houses now that are permit were cottages, especially on the ponds. They were all summer homes, they weren't plowed ever. Now you have people start to move in, or they have moved in, and they're full-time, they need to have a plow, but, you know, certain rules don't apply. They're not owned by the town.
So can't we just get a list of all the private roads and send them a letter that says, you know, maybe we've plowed you for this many years, or maybe we
Well, my
haven't, and we're gonna
suggestion
pay, you know, starting now, make it the same for everybody. If you want us to plow you, it's gonna cost this much money. If you don't, then make sure your road's plowed.
My suggestion is, and I get told Heather this, that Randall needs to, you know, talk with, you know, maybe the police department and the fire department, and find out if they can establish a committee, and a letter would be sent out by a committee, or at least a scope of services that we would, when I say scope of services, what would we do, and under what conditions we would go down there. And it should be established by Randall and maybe a volunteer group or some other professionals in town that could look at this and develop a policy, so we could look at. But to go down there and just willy-nilly doing it, no, I don't recommend that. I think we should establish a policy and send it out.
And so can we get in touch with the police department, the fire department, and see if they're willing to be a part of that group to come up with a letter, and then for the remainder of this year and whatever snow we get,
Well,
continue
you
to
have
do?
to
I mean, you
figure
can't
out-
start this in the middle of the winter.
Because there's rules and laws.
Well, that's why I'm saying you can't start it in the middle of this
And the other
winter.
thing too is, I've always looked at it this way, you need to think about these people being trapped in there,
Right.
you know, and you're gonna wait for a decision to be done, so, you know, it's a good idea that maybe you establish this and lay the ground rules down, but not in the middle of winter.
No, no, no.
I think you should do it in the spring and summer, and get these people to realize that they have to line up people and get it straightened out.
And was Randall on the same page after
Yeah,
that
he was-
conversation?
I think he was receptive to at least getting a plan here. All right?
Any other questions?
Makes sense.
Okay.
Just another comment on the snow. So Randall's been getting a lot of either phone calls or emails pertaining to the snowstorm, just to let folks know how they go about this. Last couple snowstorms we've had are unlike previous snowstorms for many ways. One thing is that they're long duration events. They're not a, 4-hour snowstorm or an 8-hour snowstorm. Most of these are, a 12, 16 hour, some of them 24, 72-hour snowstorm. Randall's operation at the highway garage is about 7 guys and then himself, and as needed, a few contractors. So generally what they're doing is you're asking essentially 8 trucks to take care of 88 miles of road. Now, mind you, College Highway is not one of them, but you have all your other roads. You know, you have East Street, you have Pomeroy Meadow, you have County Road, and then you have everything else. You have all your other secondary roads, your subdivisions, and everything. And the way they generally attack it is like anything else, you know, they make sure police and fire is pretty much taken care of first, because if you can't get emergency vehicles out, you know, people are going to be very upset, and I know I would be very upset if I can't have an emergency vehicle get to me. But then you get to your main roads first, because if you can get out of your side road, what good does it do you if you can't get to the commuter road? And then from there, they get to their secondary, tertiary, and then their subdivisions. And some people have been very upset that their, you know, private roads or their secondary or tertiary roads or subdivisions are done last, but they're not seeing the list of priorities or the fact that these guys have already been out there for 16 hours. Randall cites that, you know, in general, it takes the entire department approximately 3.5 hours to treat everything. And that's just pre-treat the roads, which they've been doing pretty much every storm. That's not even plow them. And then generally to do everything takes much longer, approximately 6 to 10 hours for a single round of plowing and clearing of the town roads, depending on the amount of snow we receive. So it takes a while. We do ask for everyone's patience to get this done, and the last couple of snowstorms have been hard, and it's getting rough with the snowbanks piling up and less place to pile the snow.
I think they're doing a great job, and I guess maybe because I understand how many people there are and how many miles of road there are. So I guess I would just ask for everyone's patience with the highway department, because it's not, I mean, I think East Hampton, I read, has 88 miles of road also, but they have many more people working on their highway department to get the roads cleared. So some patience would be helpful. But I will say that the Norris School parking lot has never looked better, and all of the parking spots, with the exception of this last storm, have been open. And this is the first time that my parking spot is still there. So,
Well, we'll have to look into that.
Southampton has grown tremendously in the last 3 or 4 years, with a lot more streets coming in with no personnel and no
Right.
equipment.
right. So they're doing a great job. Next, we have Board of, yes. Oh, sorry, Mrs. Walunas, would you mind coming to the podium? You can always just get in line, too. You don't have to wait for me to call on you. So if you have something to say and you'd like to go over, please feel free.
Tammy Walunas, 298 College Highway. Also 218 College Highway. Since we are talking about plowing and private roads, fire hydrants, isn't that something that the homeowner is also supposed to take care of? And that is not being done around town.
I don't know if, is it requirement that they clear the fire hydrant?
It's suggested.
Suggested.
strongly suggested.
Can I just say, it's common sense?
It is common sense, but I don't think that it's absolutely
The only
required.
thing we have as a bylaw is the sidewalks.
Mhm.
Randall's crew and I had a fun time this storm. 4 times they plotted in, 4 times, but they do a great job, so
Right.
you gotta just get out there and do it, I think.
Right. Highly suggested, but not required.
So it's not required, huh?
No.
Sidewalks are required, though.
Yes.
But, like Liz said, it's common sense, and it's just, it's a strong encouragement to open up those items, because you might need it.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
but there is a,
Same thing, open up your sidewalks around your house, so that they come in with a gurney or a stretcher, you know, they need access.
is that something that we could add to a bylaw? You know, if it says you have to clear out your sidewalk, couldn't we add to the bylaw that if there's a fire hydrant on your property, you're required to clean out around it?
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't seem like it's that hard to do.
That, or if you are unable to clean out,
Then
then
contact the
contact the Boy Scouts or somebody
Somebody.
else in town,
Yeah,
because those houses are in danger then.
yeah. All right, so let's keep that in the back of our heads for annual town meeting, and maybe we can come up with some wording about that. Thank you. The next on our agenda is the Board of Selectmen liaison assignments that we kept forgetting to put on the agenda. So in front of you, you have a list of assignments. The Almoners liaison is myself. The Community Preservation Commission is Jackie. Finance Committee is John Martin, Norris School Committee is myself, Personnel Policies and Procedures Board is myself, Public Safety Complex Committee is Jackie, and the Zoning Board of Appeals is Ed and David. Is there anybody that would like to change their assignment? John?
As we brought up, yeah, I'd like to change the Finance Committee for three reasons, really. One, they're too early, and by the time I get to work, I can't do it. For two, and for three, I think I don't want to be involved because now they have Heather there, and they have a whole new structure, and I think it's going great, so I don't necessarily want to bring the old to the new. So I'd like to back away, and they probably are fine with that. But I want to be involved with something, but it's a timing issue. But we need somebody on the Finance Committee as a liaison.
True story.
I think the chair would be good at that. But
Right, because I don't have my name on that list enough times.
Somebody that's got a lot of time on their hands.
When does the Finance Committee meet?
6 PM on Tuesdays.
yeah, so that's a tough one.
Right, and so let me ask the Finance Committee, what is the purpose of someone coming to your meeting for 30 minutes?
I have a stop spot right here. This is trained.
We're trying to fluctuate our meetings, so we're every other Tuesday, so we're not meeting the same week that the select
That
board
we're
meets.
meeting.
So we're meeting, for example, we're not meeting tonight, and
Right.
therefore we're here.
I see.
And we will be meeting next week. So if we'd love to have someone come as a representative to, I think the communication is important between the
I
select
do
board and
think that
finance
it's
committee.
important, because even, we didn't really have someone on the Norris School Committee very often, and now that I'm there every meeting, that communication and link is really important, and especially during budget time, to have somebody else's point of view and perspective is important. That being said, I'm not willing to give up the Norris School Committee, because I think that we have a great relationship, and me being in the school and at the meetings. And I do really like the PQB, as crazy as that may sound. But if someone would like to take over the almoners that haven't met yet, that would be okay.
I'd do the PQB if you want to. It's up to you. And one
This
thing
is
about-
like playing Monopoly.
Well, I think you need to refresh stuff. One thing about the Finance Committee, though, if they're meeting on the opposite Tuesday, whoever's on it is every Tuesday of the month.
Yeah,
So you may want
which
to
is
get
tough.
two people on that so they can,
I hate microphones. We will be meeting more in February and March because we're bringing the big departments, highway, police, and fire, to Finance Committee. So those would be the key meetings for you to attend.
okay. And I do like how Heather's sending out that memo with the meeting reminder, so if any of us want to be there, we can just say sure. So that's a nice notice.
Do you ever meet, like, in the afternoon, 2 o'clock,
Well,
3 o'clock,
without getting up, I mean, Amanda, who's our chair,
works
Works
later?
full-time.
Okay, just
So it's
throwing
a
that
little-
part out there.
it's hard to make that commitment.
I understand. Is there anybody that would like to take over the liaison to the Finance Committee?
Well, I'll do it the best I can, okay?
Well, how about we make a deal? I'll give you Reading Railroad for Mediterranean Avenue. How about we come, we look at the schedule and we can alternate weeks?
That's fine.
Would that be okay with the Finance Committee to have two people, or would you prefer one person consistently?
I think it's the voice of the select board
Okay.
that's important.
Okay.
You can have both of us there sometimes.
Yeah,
would be,
that could be possible. And do you ever schedule your meetings ahead of time like we do on the PQB, and I know?
Go do that, you better
Want to offer that up?
I'm
Yeah.
secretary,
That'd be
and
good.
I've got meetings scheduled through March 17th right now.
Okay.
But I don't want to insult Charlie,
Okay, so
you know, but I've been there once.
Okay.
I just don't have time.
I would not do that.
Anybody can reach out to me or Heather, and we'll tell you, like, we have fire, police, DPW, and schools already set up.
Okay, so you can change the liaison reports to the Finance Committee being myself and Ed, and you can put John on the almoners.
And on the Public Safety Committee, Jackie is on the switch.
Yeah, I never get there, and I feel bad. I'm gonna miss you, Charlie, but
So Jackie, you're coming off the Public
he knows
Safety,
so much more than me, yeah.
and John, you're going on?
Yeah, I'm back on.
So John, there's a meeting tomorrow night at 6:30. Will you be here?
So here's my last closing statement for this. And I feel kind of strongly about it. If you are a liaison to a board or committee, I expect that you go and you tell them that you're not going to be there. And if you can't withhold that commitment, then you need to find somebody to go in your place. I just feel like, personally, I'm out of the house every night of the week at some other meeting, and if I'm going to be doing that, I guess I expect everybody else to do it too. So if you can't go, find somebody to go in your place, let somebody know that you're not going, and then perhaps at the beginning of our agendas, when it says Select Board Updates and Liaison Reports, everyone will have one.
Can we skip to section 6.4 to get the Charlies out?
Oh, you don't want to stay for the whole meeting? Sure.
Where does the meeting be tomorrow?
Right here, where you are, John. You can have the same seat.
You don't leave your name tag up. All right, 6.4, are we on 6, we want to go to 6.42, the extension of the land grant until fiscal 16.
Basically, yes, there's a new contract. We've signed these in sequence. I think this is the third one you're going to be signing. It extends the eligibility of the town to take this land grant of $225,720 through fiscal year 16. So beginning at the end of June of this year, we'll be able to bring to conclusion the negotiations with the railroad over that period of fiscal year 16. And you have to...
Did you say conclusion?
We'll have to, yes, we'll bring it to a, let's hope for the best. But that's the next fiscal year 16 is when we have to bring this to conclusion. They have been extending it because the nature of the negotiations being complicated. So basically, there's a standard state document there. 2 signatures are required on one, and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts contract authorization signature listing. That's another document. And on the first cover letter, you'll see what is required to get the reimbursement after we, in principle, purchase the property with town money. There is a whole variety of activities and documents that have to be in place, which the Commission and maybe the Greenway Committee and the Friends of the Greenway Committee will be helping us to develop near the end of this. So basically, 2 signatures on this document, and it'll be forwarded to the DCS, Department of Conservation Services.
I would accept a motion to sign the land grant extension until fiscal 16 for the Greenway project.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There's only one little red arrow. Where's the other signature go? Right here? Who?
You're gonna write your name and then your title. We're gonna do that afterwards. It's complicated.
Well, if you just gave me red arrows, I'd be all set. Just me, or do you need another signature? All set? There we go. Thanks, Charlie. Next, we have Charlie Knickie on the 210 College Highway deeds. We need a signature on this. We had, need to sign the deeds and the purchase and sale agreement after the special town meeting.
Well, I was going to give you guys a quick presentation, if you give me 30 seconds to get this thing going.
I guess you can have that.
Oh, man.
Finding out is the sound system looks great.
I think it does. I wish that if anybody on 7 Bullhead Road was listening to this meeting and they could hear us more clearly than normal, that they would send a text. Oh, no, that is not on Bullhead Road. All right, thanks. Good to know.
Almost there.
Maybe we need to readjust our microphones. All right, let's try this. Keep me posted.
We were talking about highways and getting plowed and all this. Route 10 near your house.
That one area. Yeah.
I'm sure but what can the town do about that? That's on the state highway. That's what I was wondering.
I don't know, but I did notice that.
They spray painted it one night. Barrels out there that got totally smashed. They had flares, they were trying to melt it. The greenhouse is Blaze.
Did he sell that now? It was
He's
for
trying
sale.
to, but it's above that piece of
Right,
property is where it comes out.
property, yeah. That's dangerous.
Bullhead Road says that if you move your microphone in front of you, it's much better.
Who said that?
Bullhead Road. So if you're speaking and you put the microphone right in front of you, they- just move the microphone when you speak. Right in front of
You
you.
know, I very seldom get that complaint.
Well, now we know. Oh, can't hear John. Better move. I'm pretty sure that will never happen. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, Charlie, we're ready.
Heather, you want to hit that light switch so they can see the screen better? There we
Oh,
go.
wow.
Yeah, we got a full screen
This is
now, huh?
excellent.
If you remember about a year and a half ago, the Public Safety Building Committee came to your board to explain to you that we had numerous deeds sprinkled throughout this whole area of the present town hall, as well as the old fire station and the complex. There's something like 12 different deeds out here. We also had a county road that went through this building. Now, to give you a quick update, about 8 months ago, we met with the county commissioners. They formally voted to abandon this road, and this road no longer exists on paper. We've now taken and surveyed out the entire area, and this is now how the property lines look, taking out all those deeds and everything else that was there. We've taken and surveyed everything out. We've recorded it with the planning board, have approval. We now have a Mylar that's going to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds with this. In the meantime, we were doing the soil analysis relative to the public safety complex and the septic system. We discovered the only area for a septic system that the soils were suitable was on this piece of property, which is the Braze property. So at town meeting, they allocated the money to take and purchase this land. What we're doing tonight is basically taking those old deeds, merging them into one deed with one plan that's going to be recorded. We are also purchasing the Braze property. So the instruments in front of you are basically the deeds that need to be signed for these takings that can be recorded, and the warrant to sign to take and pay the $30,000 for the property, and I don't have an exact figure, but about $3,000 in legal expenses.
That looks much better than it did. How many deeds were there, Charlie? 12?
About 12 deeds here, plus a county road that was never abandoned. What we're really doing is housekeeping.
Yeah.
We're bringing this to reflect the reality of what's here. But when we first started doing this exploring to build a public safety complex, we had this pile of old deeds that we had to sort of mash together to try to figure out what they meant. That's why it's taken a year and a half. And now that's all pretty much been merged and cleaned up. If you see from this survey here, you don't see the Bray property on it, because at the time, that wasn't an interest when we started this.
Did you ever find out if anybody had any relatives that owned any of those properties or anything?
We found that most transactions were 50 to 100 years or longer, so there wasn't any need or necessity to start doing those types of title searches. The attorney that's working on this has given us a clean title. So basically what happens is you sign this and you're transferring it over to Parker and O'Grady Law Firm. They in turn transfer it back to you, what they call a straw deed, so you end up with one deed.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board?
Just one question. The bigger parcel up to the northeast, I guess?
Yeah?
No, the other side, Charlie, right there. Now, that's a lot of wetlands, is that it?
Yes, basically, I didn't bring the topos, but basically, we have a brook that comes off of this side of the hill, runs under the parking lots between the fire station and this building, across the driveway, and it dumps out here. And then the wetlands proceed as the pointer's going, pretty much like this, and then it cuts into, this is town land too, by the way, but we didn't bother surveying it because it's all swamp. And then it cuts across Route 10. You see that brook that cuts across there? That's where that is.
So there's no way we can use that for egress into the property unless we do a lot of...
Tomorrow's meeting, which now you're going to be sitting in on, is going to be with the civil engineer explaining the permit process and the expense it would take to try to cross that wetlands, and then to duplicate whatever we take and fill in. At this point in time, to be quite upfront, it looks cost prohibiting to do that. I mean, I think if you want me to go a little further here, this is the wetlands. That's the 100-foot buffer. As you can see, that's the present fire station. It's in the 100-foot buffer as it is. This is only a preliminary concept. Don't assume this is the final. But even there, that's the reason of putting the driveways here. If we move the buildings up this way and try to put a driveway across here, we're filling in what, a 40-foot hole? Plus getting permits from DEP, reclamation in the wetlands, and trying to take and make it someplace else. I mean, Charlie, too, could talk more to this than me, but that's where we're heading. Tomorrow night will be very enlightening as to where this comes together. But tonight's meeting is basically to get this property under one deed. And even if the town decides not to build a public safety complex, we at least end up with a clean title, a clean survey, and soils that'll support a septic system in case we want to do something else in the future.
Very good. Can we turn the light back on?
When is that property up top going to become ours? What, the closing date on that?
13th,
13th?
this Friday. So theoretically, next week.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from the board?
No, I just want to thank you, Charlie, for putting all this together.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I will be candid, tongue-in-cheek here. The last thing I expected doing the public safety complex was to get into so much deed research and history of this community as to what took place in the center of town. It was quite enlightening to find out just all these little facets of stuff here. And as you can see, there's a year and a half's worth of work here just to try to get this so that tonight we can sign these deeds and close this out. We still haven't even moved forward on what the public safety complex is going to look like.
Right. So at this point, I would accept, is it called a quitclaim? Is that what we need to sign? Heather? Is that the name of what we need to sign, a quitclaim deed? Is that how you need the motion to be?
You can just say a motion to sign the deeds to combine.
So I would accept a motion to sign the, what did you say? The deeds?
You're essentially signing a HUD document to combine all of the deeds into one, is one of the things you're doing. I'm sorry, no, I lied, I'm sorry, I'm getting my brain confused at 7:42 at night. You're doing two different things.
Right.
One is to actually transfer all of the deeds, so
And
that
then
they
sign the
ultimately
purchase
end
and
up
sale.
into the town of Southampton's name, all as one deed. And the second thing you're doing is you're signing the HUD document, and that goes along with the bill warrant, so you could hold off on that vote for a few minutes.
So are we getting a quick claim deed or a warranty deed on this?
Quick claim deed.
If anybody comes back to us down the road, they're only guaranteeing what they know right now.
Quick claim as is, yes.
Yeah, okay,
That's why we did all the research we did.
okay.
So I would accept a motion to sign the quitclaim deed, merging the multiple deeds into one.
No,
No?
they're two separate
Why?
documents. So one document, again, is you're doing all of the, one document is for the purchase of the land,
Yeah, that's not what's in front of me.
and one document is to, I'm sorry, I can't speak at all tonight. One document is to purchase the land, that's the HUD document, which is all the way at the end, I believe, it's like 2 or 3 sheets.
Well, I was going
And
in
that
order,
goes
so-
along with the bill warrant. And then the other document is to actually transfer all of the separate deeds into one.
I would accept a motion to transfer all the separate deeds into one.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
But isn't that what's on top for you, for me to sign right now?
Yes.
That's what I was getting at. And you need all of us to sign it?
The quick claim deed.
Yes.
And we can sign the purchase and sale when we get to the warrants, is that what you're saying? Next, we're going to move on to appointments. We have Joe Bianca as a zoning board member, currently an alternate. Mr. Bianca is currently an alternate and wishes to become a regular member of the ZBA, and the ZBA concurs. So I would accept a motion to appoint Joe Bianca as a permanent member on the zoning board.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have Shanna Reed as an alternate to the zoning board, and in your packet is her letter of interest. So at this point, I would accept a motion to appoint Shanna Reed as the alternate to the zoning board.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Then we have Ron Lauren as the tree warden. We did this at a previous meeting, but Mr. Lauren was already appointed at a previous meeting, and in which we precautionarily declared a local state of emergency before the projected blizzard of January 26th. We simply reinstating his appointment here for clarification and public awareness. Mr. Lauren replaces Mr. Garska, who resigned on December 31st. Is there a motion to appoint Ron Lauren to the tree? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have Michael Rosenberg as an appointment to the Finance Committee. He would make the 5th member of the Finance Committee, which allows the Finance Committee to operate as a full committee. Is there a motion to appoint?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then we need to appoint, and can I appoint these all at once? We need to appoint the election poll workers of 2015, which are Virginia Ahart, Ruth Bernier, Barbara Origi, Alice Brewer, Monica Labrie, Florence Collins, Deborah Pinsky, Virginia Huntley, Eileen Kuchar, Teresa Gorel, and Ann Gerard.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
How do you get to be a poll worker? Do you have to fill out an application?
You let the town clerk know you're interested, and she lets you know if she has any available openings for the position.
That's it?
Generally, and you should be a registered voter. You don't have to work in the town, which you become a poll worker, but generally, that's where priority starts.
Gotcha. Okay, next we have town employee cell phone reimbursement versus a town plan. We're at a decision point right now for cell phones in lots of departments. We've been using AT&T plan for years, and that's reached a few limitations, including service and technology limits. Some towns have switched to providing their employees with a reimbursement option, others have gone with a town plan. The one we have found would be $40 a month per phone. The question is, do you want to switch the way we do things now?
Well,
Or-
how many people are we talking about? I mean, I don't want every person to have one, and we're opening the door for reimbursement of people that, you know, legitimately required to have one.
Yeah, there should be a list of who's approved for cell phone. And can I ask a question? What's wrong with AT&T and limitations?
So currently with AT&T, actually, and Liz, since we typed that, it's actually, the prices, we found out was incorrect there. It's only $29.99 per line per month. There's no contract term. Each line comes with 400 minutes, but minutes are pooled. You get to share the minutes between all of the devices you have on the same plan, and Verizon is unlimited. You also get 100 text messages per phone. AT&T right now, we don't have the text messages, and we keep going over our minutes. That's becoming problematic. Who has phones right now? My understanding is Randall, the highway super, the 2 foremen, the building inspector, the water department super. Health agent has one, but the health agent's been using like mobile cards. So she actually wasn't on the current phone plan that we had. But there were at least 5.
I mean,
Who were?
I'd like to see an actual list.
Department has them.
Yeah.
Fire department has them.
Not on our plan that we know about, or that I knew about.
And the plan that, is it the highway department?
Okay.
There's 5 phones in that plan,
At the fire department?
the highway department.
Oh, at the highway
You're
department?
talking about cell phones.
At the highway department, yes, but these are the ones that are on the plan.
Mm.
It's not all highway guys. So the only highway guys on the plan are Randall, 2 foremen, then you have the water department and the building
That's
department.
it, yep.
So-
But if we had a list of all the people, I just was involved with a complete cell phone optimization plan with, I don't want to tell you how many hundreds and hundreds of phones, and we pooled all the minutes to messages and hundreds of thousands of dollars savings. Granted, it was on a huge scale, but we can do the same thing with this, and you have control. One of the issues with paying somebody for their use of the cell phone is, where does public information come in? Can we search their cell phones for a public records request or not? And if we can't, then the issue is, that information isn't available to us. So I personally am against that in general, unless there's other ways around it.
So you're saying there's only 5 plans currently, 5 phones?
Well, it
Yes.
sounds like the highway department, the police, the fire, all that should be under one plan. My guess is we've got a good dozen
Who has a
phones.
cell phone on the police department, the chief?
Several, of them, if not all of them.
But not that we pay for.
I don't.
Well, do we reimburse? I think we should do
They
a
have
survey.
policy.
They have their own
They
policy,
have their own
right?
policy, but, you know, the town's paying for some of it.
Yeah, I think we should do a survey, find out what we're doing, and standardize everything. I mean, if they need a phone, I don't have an issue with it, but
Well, the other thing too is, these are coming out of their budgets. It's not like it's coming out of a budget that's here. It's coming out of their budgets, right?
That's true. I wasn't aware of police and fire when we had asked these questions. The reason this comes up is essentially because if we go to the reimbursement concept, the question is how much, who gets it, and how does one apply? So that's where it really becomes a question, because if we were to go to the reimbursement concept, it would become a policy issue.
But I mean, the policy in the fire and the police or highway can be the same. It's just now we have a plan up here, and they can select what they need, and automatically it gets billed to their department. I think as a town, we can get a lot better rates if we do it all in one plan.
So maybe we need to find out how many phones
Yeah, I'd say
could
do
be
a-
included if we use the police and fire department also.
Do a survey of who has a town reimbursed or paid for phone.
Yeah, and you can call up Verizon or AT&T and say, I've got 40 phones here. What's your deal?
Yeah.
They have come in before, and they have special agents that deal strictly with municipal or business phones.
I can give you some contacts we used.
I've done this on a municipal level. What I would suggest is calling the phone companies that you've dealt with in the past. It might not even be your current vendor. Find out who has a line, what the line is, and what the utilization is. Because you could do a survey, and somebody might not think they have a phone, but we're paying for it.
No, you're right, that's what we did, we went right to the phone companies.
Right.
Or we could have, somebody could have a phone and they're not using it.
Right. So let's go right to the phone companies, Heather, and come up with a list and number and,
So we might have a volunteer on the finance committee to help out.
I didn't say it.
I live here already, come on, you're killing me.
all right, so we're gonna revisit this town employee cell phone. Can you put that on our next agenda? With a list and possible other rates and numbers of phones and lines and who and how.
But I just want to make it clear, each one of these departments are paying for their own. Not like we have a line item here.
The next topic is annual town meeting update and budgets. And the tri-annual payments of, I thought this was Board of Assessors, oh, it is, of the Board of Assessors, sorry. I saw Board of Selectmen, I couldn't figure out what we were paying for. Go ahead.
Okay, so something's come up over the past couple department head meetings. Years ago, the Board of Assessors had originally started with their triennial reassessments of everything. They had started budgeting part of their costs for these reassessments, or triennial reassessments, in pieces. So this year, they would put, $5,000 aside. Next year, they'd add $5,000 to it, so it'd be $10,000. The year after, they'd add $5,000, it'd be $15,000. Auditor said you can't do that with a regular account. You can't roll over the numbers. You can't do it. You can't do it unless it's a special revolving account, what have you. The other problem we run into is, okay, say we create a special revolving account if it's possible. You're tying up the money. You're tying up $5,000, $10,000 that you're not using this year, so you have it for 3 years from now. It doesn't make sense. We have things we need $5,000 or $10,000 for right now, whether it's to buy a tape recorder for the town clerk so she can actually tape her meetings instead of using a 1972 tape recorder, whether it's $2,000 so the library can get a new printer, whatever it may be, we need the $10,000. Maybe it's for an OPEB study for now, and then we need it for a triennial in 3 years. The concern the Board of Assessors had was they claimed that a few years ago, the Board of Selectmen, the current body that sat at the time, about 5 years ago, had actually passed a decision saying that this is what the Board of Selectmen wished them to do, was to actually budget for this and put aside $5,000, $10,000, and $15,000 over a course of 3 years so that they had the money there. They asked me to go to the board this evening and get the decision reversed. The reason being, they wanted to make sure they were in compliance with the wishes of the Board of Selectmen, and everyone was on the same page. I ran this through Vicky. I think we've talked about it a couple times at finance team over time. We've ran it through Donna. We've already been through the auditors with this. They say you can't do it. You could theoretically perhaps come up with a revolving fund, but again, you're tying up $5,000 to $10,000 that we could be using for something else.
So are you saying just every third year fund it for $15,000?
Every third year, just fund
Yeah.
pay what we need to pay. We know what's coming up. We know that every 3 years we have to pay 15 or 18, whatever it is. We fund it as we need it.
I mean, it makes sense. I remember going through it on the finance committee and all that, but the budget was so tight, we didn't have that extra 10 in the third year. So if we can do it that way, I think it's a good idea, just we got to find the funds.
That's my only concern. I mean, it makes sense to put money away every year so that you're not having that big hit, but if the auditors say that you can't do it, then you gotta find a different way.
The auditor said we can't put money away.
They said they can't do it the way we're
You can't roll the
doing it.
money over.
Okay.
They were rolling the money over in a regular account. You
Right.
can't do it. It goes back to free cash annually.
So, I mean, I'm in favor of changing it over and seeing how it goes.
When's the third year? When do we need $15,000?
I believe it's next year.
So not this year?
No.
Well, it's
I
positive.
believe this year we have to fund OPEB. OPEB's every 2.
Yeah, we're way behind on that, aren't we?
No, we just did OPEB, I think, the year before. So I
No.
think we did OPEB FY14. I was here for the OPEB study.
What is how much outstanding are we in OPEB?
I don't want to take a guess on the numbers. I'm not familiar as much with our OPEB liability. Donna would be able to tell you more accurately, but we're going to be okay because we
Okay.
started putting money aside with our free cash. I think we have like 57,000.
Okay.
So we're starting, and the good news is our OPEB is not as high as many people who have like millions and millions up there.
So I guess I would accept a motion from the board to reverse past policy and fund the triennial report as needed.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a finance team update.
So the finance team consists of myself, the treasurer, the accountant, a representative or two from the finance committee, a rep from the school finance office, and a representative from the assessor's office. We've generally had good attendance from all. We've had 3 meetings so far, which are bi-weekly. We meet again in next week. We didn't meet this week. So we meet again next week. The school budgets are coming along. That's one thing we've been talking about at every meeting. Hampshire Regional School Department put together a budget of approximately a 1.99% increase overall in their budget. The Board of Selectmen currently has a draft of the HRSD budget before them now. Please note it does not incorporate into FY16 net school spending predictions because the state has not come out with them yet. Governor's allowed some additional time to come out with his FY16 budget since he just took into office. Copies of all the budgets thus far that we have gone over with the summaries are before you. They're just a summary sheet, essentially tells you what's been happening with the department past couple of years for what they've been asking for, what they've been getting, if they have any sources of revenue. Brief summary of what the discussions were before the finance group that met with them, and any comments we have or any additional information. A lot of them have additional information that have been asked of them to come back. Moving on to the next item, because I'm just taking over the rest of this part of the agenda here, the FY15 budget review. So we're not in too bad of shape. We should be around approximately 57-58%, give or take, right about now. Most of the accounts you see might be a bit higher on the expenses. Sometimes it happens because they paid for software, conferences, supplies up front. A few are higher percentage-wise because they do not account for encumbered funds in the PO or purchase order. Some things that reflect this are like legal expenses, where we are only a little more than about a quarter of the budget, and gas and electric for the new town hall, where we're about 51% right now. The only payroll-related item that's a bit higher than the 57-58% is communication wages, and as of yesterday, which did not reflect most current payroll period, it was 61.25%. So yes, it's higher. It's not drastically higher, but it's a couple percentage points higher. Looking ahead at winter wages and expenses, we are doing okay so far. As of yesterday, it was 49.57% and 56.18% respectively. We have not added the latest 2 payroll weeks from the last 2 storms and the last bit of purchases of sand and salt to that, so it will drastically increase the amount. We won't know where we're at, but we do have our deficit letter ready to go for the next Board of Selectmen meeting to be signed and sent to the state, because we expect to be in deficit by the end of the month or early March. But we're keeping an eye on everything as far as that goes. As far as revenues goes, we're still keeping an eye on them. We're waiting for the latest turnover, so I hope to have a better report on that for the next Board of Selectmen meeting. Right now, it's hard to tell. We're hoping, to kind of gauge the percentage-wise of where we're at. But because most recent turnovers haven't really been processed and sent up to the accountant's office to be entered into the system completely, same thing goes for taxes. I can't tell you if we're where we're supposed to be or even on par with last year at this time. But we're going to keep an eye on those. The next item here we have is capital improvement. FY16 budgets. So FY16 budgets, folks have been turning them in. We've been meeting with people. So far, we have met with the, let's see, what do we have? We have Council on Aging, the Building Department, the Accounting Office, Town Clerk, Conservation Commission, and the PPPB. I'm still missing budgets from the Board of Assessors, the Moderator, the Finance Committee, the Planning Board, the Board of Health, and the Treasurer is working on hers, so I should have it in the next day or so. I also met briefly with the Cemetery Commission today. They're working on theirs, and the Moderator. So hopefully, I think I listed him already. Hopefully, I'll have those shortly. I do have draft, and I mean very, very draft budgets from the Highway, Police, and Fire. And Norris School, according to the superintendent today, they are working on it, and I should have it very early on. As far as budget meetings for the larger departments, as mentioned earlier by the Finance Committee, the meetings have been set up. So on February 24th at 6 p.m., the Finance Committee, along with myself and Donna and Vicki, will be meeting with the Highway Department on the 24th at 6 p.m. On the 3rd, we will be meeting with the School Department On the 10th, we will be meeting with, yes,
Time out.
try again. Okay, 24th of February,
Is who?
Highway,
At 6 o'clock.
at 6
And
o'clock.
we're meeting at 6:30.
I will not be at this meeting, I will be at that meeting. I was given a set selection of meetings to be at, and unfortunately, I haven't figured out how to split in two.
You sent out emails on those times and everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're all.
She did, and I couldn't open it. It looked like all these funny letters.
Your computer does not like Outlook, I'm so sorry.
Go Tuesday the 3rd
March 3rd is school department
at 6
at
o'clock.
6.
Yeah,
March 10th
yeah.
is the fire department. And on St. Patty's Day, we will be talking about police.
Excellent. Okay. Can I just ask who did this, that I have in my hands, this overview? Who did this?
I did.
I just was looking at it and thought it was very helpful. If you haven't looked at it in front of you,
That's good, 'cause
this
if you
is
said you
all the
absolutely hated it,
information that
I
we
didn't
said
do
we
it.
wanted. So for those of you who don't know what we're looking at every meeting, we say, I wonder what they got in 2012, and I wonder how much they didn't get in 2013. And in front of us is a 4-year history of what they actually received with line items, their requests for fiscal 16, any memberships that they may have to renew with a dollar amount associated with it, any questions, concerns, or things that the finance team has asked them to come back with. So for us sitting up here who have not been involved thus far, this information is extremely helpful and well communicated.
One of the things I've taken into consideration, Don and Vicki and I have tried to incorporate, is Sharon made a very good point. She said, you know, we'd really like to see an all-funds budget. And for most of us, we have no idea what an all-funds budget is, so we're trying to incorporate it in slowly, which is really the idea of taking in all possible revenue sources and all expenses. For small departments, it's really okay. When you get to the larger departments, we just want to cry. So we are trying to utilize the idea and embrace it. Some of these we developed before we incorporated the notion of all funds, but we're getting there. We're moving forward, and we're trying to incorporate more and more. If anyone has a question about when we have a budget meeting, the best way to figure it out is to see if there's a major snowstorm. We have a budget meeting scheduled. An example was yesterday, we were supposed to meet with the library. We didn't, because there was a snowstorm. And that's been the whole budget season so far. I guarantee it the whole way, and it will continue.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Moving on from there, my next thing, and actually, does the board have any comments on budgets before I move on to capital improvement?
I have a question. FY15, you said it really fast. What is the driver for the overage communications?
Usually what ends up happening is someone ends up taking vacation time and we're still paying someone else at the same time.
Okay.
So we're essentially paying 2 salaries for 1 shift.
Okay. And then you're sending a letter to the state about a deficit, but that's in snow and ice?
Yes,
Okay, that's what I thought, but it was like,
yes.
okay,
That's so we can overspend
okay.
our budget.
Does anybody need an explanation of why all funds budgeting is critical?
Sure.
Okay. The reason I've been pushing for an all-funds budget is because typically this town has been looking at its general fund only, and so the Council on Aging could be providing $52,000 in benefit to the community, but it's only using $20,000 in general fund. So we've been putting all of our expenses in a bucket, and we've only been, like, we have all these expenses, and we're saying, okay, we have all these expenses, now what's our general fund revenue? Well, we really don't, I mean, general fund revenue is really important because that's the tax revenue, right? But there are all these other sources of funds. There's state revenue, there's grant, you know, might be federal, state, local, not local, private revenue. Like, there's all these different sources that go to pay these expenses. And typically, historically, we've only been looking at the general fund, which is not really a good way to look at it. So that's why I'm pushing for an all funds understanding.
I don't get it.
Okay.
You could
have $1,000, I'm just gonna like use personal and firmly. You could have, your mortgage costs $1,000. And you might earn $800 from the school department as part of your regular job, and then maybe you have a part-time job for $300. Actually, let's make that a little higher. your mortgage is $1,000 a month, and you earn $1,100 from the school department, and then you have a part-time job for $300. That's like just looking at your $1,100 to pay your mortgage, when really you have $1,400. So you have $400 in excess. Do you know what I mean? But you're only
Well, it makes
counting-
sense to me, but I guess I don't understand how it applies to the town. Like, where are we missing revenue?
It's revenue, I mean,
Over $500,000.
well, you're looking at, I mean, grants are specific for that operation, there's certain criteria. But you just want to know how much it is.
There's also enterprise funds that sometimes, like, it could be one FTE.
But isn't
But
that extra
eight-
revenue that you're talking about already tied up somewhere else? So you,
We've only been looking at the general fund. Like you could have one FTE for the highway department, but only like 0.7 or 0.8% is paid for by general fund, and 0.2 or 3% is paid for by an enterprise fund. We haven't been looking at our true revenue.
You remember when
Yeah,
we
but,
see
one thing
43
I can
weeks,
tell you,
where's the other money
like an
coming from?
enterprise fund, there's
Enterprise
two.
fund?
There's two, I know.
But
wants to
there's
show it.
indirect cost
I
that goes
see.
back to the town, it's part of
I
your
get it.
revenue source.
Absolutely,
thanks.
Okay, and that's done annually.
absolutely. No, I
Those other
understand
things are dedicated funds for specific operations that are not in the budget.
that. Oh, I understand.
Okay.
And then like we've been doing it with the school department too, there's indirects and Schedule 19, which we haven't been capturing. There's just a lot of, we're just looking at general fund, and there's just so much more.
Got it.
Got it?
Check. Thanks.
Yep.
All good on the budget piece?
Ready to go.
Okay, Capital Improvement Committee. So I'm really excited about the Capital Improvement Committee. They have a full 5-member board. They are on their 3rd meeting this Thursday, or is it the 4th? I actually don't even remember at this point. It feels like they're just zooming right along. They're meeting with their first department, the highway, to discuss their capital requests and review their next steps and meetings. Requests were submitted by police, fire, highway, and library, and the Council on Aging. Norris will be submitting a request for a phone system shortly. Capital Improvement Committee expects to have articles ready for the Board of Selectmen by the mid or end of April. At the last CIC meeting, Virginia Ahard actually visited the CIC and spoke regarding the possible use of CPA funds for some of the requests. The COA had submitted a request for ADA-compliant doors. Mrs. Ahart suggested the Board of Selectmen submitting a formal request to the CPA for use of funds under historical buildings to get ADA-compliant doors for this building and the COA, and regular entrance. The building inspector and myself are actually working on finding quotes for these and seeing what we need to do before we go to the CPA with an actual presentation. But should the Board of Selectmen support this petition, we will move forward and actually go before the CPA and see what we can get for funds to support the project.
So when we built the building, we didn't have to have ADA compliant doors?
Good,
No.
that's what I was,
You
well,
got an exemption from it.
we got an exemption?
They got an exemption
I
from
heard-
it, but they still really should have them.
Wasn't that after the fact, though?
No, that was during the process. The architect did it.
Why would we do that?
I don't know, maybe how much money they had.
I didn't know you can get an exemption for ADA requirements, especially on a public
I
building.
mean, we had to build that long sidewalk.
Yeah, but the
to meet
doors
requirements.
themselves,
But
yeah.
they got an exemption in several areas for ADA industry.
So we're going to hopefully get those funds from CPA.
If I have a vote from the Board of Selectmen to support me moving forward to follow the CPA petition, as soon as Tom and I have the supporting documentation, we will present it to the Community Preservation Commission and move forward with that. But I just want to make sure I have support of the Board of Selectmen that this is what they'd like me to do.
Can I ask a question? Who is going to review the ADA updates so that we make sure that they're indeed what we need? Because it's
The
going to be
building
expensive.
Building inspector?
Building inspector.
Okay, I'm not sure how much experience Tom has with this, but if
Well, I'm
not,
sure
is there
there's-
somebody?
I mean, as a state building inspector, I'm sure you can call and
Yeah.
pick his brain.
Yeah,
you know.
because this is going to be expensive.
But
and
it's
we'll-
2 doors, am I right? It's this door here and one at the end of the hallway.
It's actually, it would be 3, because it would be the 2 doors for the Council on Aging and
Okay,
a door for here.
all right.
So do you know what the compliance is? Is it going to be automatic, or is it going to be just big push battles, or do we know?
I don't know, we have to look into it. I can't give you the quotation. I can tell you that if it came from CPA funds, it's less money out of the general fund, so that's a good thing. I don't know how much it would be. We've had guesstimations. COA guesstimated $7,000. Tom guesstimated a lot less.
I guess it doesn't matter where the funding's coming from, we just want to do it right.
Right.
So if we give a vote to go ahead with that, is somebody going to come back with us, or is just Tom?
Yes, what would happen would be this, is if the board decides, all I'm looking for tonight is the board to say, yes, we want you to move forward and pursue this. So what would happen then is Tom and I are going to look into what do we actually need, get 3 quotes. You have to start somewhere before we can even go before CPA. At that point, what happens is CPA says, yes, we'd like to support this, and we want to go to town meeting with an article. At that point, we have to figure out, well, what's the cost? Is the cost enough that actually triggers us under, Chapter 30B to actually go out and get a bid, or, to pursue our quotes even more, whatever it may be?
I think this is going to be under Chapter 149. This is the building
The
construction.
building's not.
149?
Prevailing
To
wages.
answer your question, the library did a pair of doors.
Yeah.
I think years ago, they put money in for shelving, and then they came back to you to redo the article, and they redid the article so you could take the money they had for shelving,
Yep.
which was a $10,000 item, and they updated the doors to the ADA. I think it was a retrofit of about $8,000.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, it's 149, it's prevailing wages, so that always brings the cost up, but we got to do it right.
Whatever it may be, but essentially the idea is, once we have the quotes, if we have to go to bid, whatever, we want to get everything done
Yep.
in time for special town, or for regular town meeting in May, so that we can move forward with construction right afterwards, or installation, whatever it may be.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I will take a pile of PCFs from whoever has them. Probably me. And if you all want to start looking through those bill warrants and stuff, that would be great. There are 5 PCFs and a change in wages at the library to make the employees compliant with the new minimum wage, which is $9 an hour. So there's a PCF for Barbara Thompson, Gloria Galinsky, Michael Dean, Paige Dolinsky, and Cynthia Lucier to move their pay wage from $8.84 to $9 an hour.
I make that motion.
They've all been signed off on by the Finance Committee.
I'm going to second it for a conversation. I've got a question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay, I second it. So
Okay, they're all approved by the PQB and the Finance Committee.
okay, the effective date's got to be by 1/1, correct?
Yes.
Because that's the law, okay.
Just as an FYI, we didn't discover till afterwards when there was a memo release, but the law that was passed actually does not affect the municipalities.
That's right, too. Legal gave that opinion, didn't it? Legal gave us that opinion, I remember that.
We got the opinion out by, I think Copeland and Page had actually issued it to all of its municipalities to which it served, and it was actually issued as well by a couple of state agencies to the effect that, this doesn't actually affect us. But at this point, we had already used good faith to make this move forward. The amount of funds that come out of this still come out of Barbara's pay to pay temporary workers. So if she had $100 and she was paying them $8.84, she can still only spend $100, so she can just get less hours out of it.
Yeah, they're well worth it for sure.
So there's a motion and a second to sign those PCFs. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a PCF for David Sizz on the Highway Department to move his pay rate from $17.19 to $17.54. And I think, if I'm looking at the right thing, he got his catch basin cleaner license. Is that what that
35
looks like?
cents.
Yep. So he has all of his information here. I'd accept a motion to sign.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And I have a PCF for Benjamin Hogan for the completion of his Mass Fire Academy training as a prerequisite to officership. So he moves from 2136 to 2236, and it says that this pay increase will not increase the fire chief's budget.
I don't have those numbers.
Yeah, I don't have that either.
I have it on,
I have it at 15 to 1650.
Right, I do too.
That's what's on the agenda also.
What do you have?
I have old hourly rate, 2136, new hourly rate, 2236.
For Benjamin Logan?
Yes.
I might have typed it wrong. Might have got excited.
Yeah.
What's the second one?
The second one is for Katie Saban for her professional firefighter 1-2 certification, and that says $15 to
The
$16.50.
Yeah, that's correct.
And Joseph Veal, for the same reason, from 1616 to 1766. So I would,
Oh,
This
why don't you
is
amend the agenda here to show that? You want me to make that motion?
yep,
Can I have the dollar amount again?
yep.
Fire Department, I want to amend the printed agenda on Benjamin Hogan from 15 to 1650 to read, which was, the old rate was $21.36, the new rate would be $22.36.
Is there a second on the amendment?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So then I would accept a motion for those three PCS, Benjamin Hogan, Katie Saban, and Joseph Veal, to approve their pay increases.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then we have a, hold on. We have a resignation PCF for John Ferrero. Do I need to read his letter of resignation? No. Who's resigning effective December 1st. So I'd accept a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, hold on while I catch up signing.
John's letter there.
Yeah.
My sign is in two, right?
Go on. I think you looked at that.
I need a stamp.
Jeez.
Can you pass those down? The next one is a PRF for the Board of Health, the administrative assistant position, for $9 hours per week, $14.10 per hour. It was approved by the PQB and the Finance Committee. The job description is attached if anyone would like to see it. Currently, there's a volunteer in the office. Would anyone like to make the motion to approve? What, did I miss
Oh.
one?
No, I'll make the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Sign these? You want me to sign these?
No, I just want you to give them to Kevin.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 No worries.
Can you pass that one down to Kevin?
This is for Kevin, too.
We have a, oh, right there. We have a one-day liquor, wine and malt alcohol license for the Friends of the Library for a fundraiser to be held at 30 East Street, the library, on February 13th from 5 to 8, with a snow date of February 27th. Alcohol is to be served by True Beer. Fee is waived. Is there a motion to sign?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody that doesn't have anything to do Friday night, head on over to the library. We have 2 reissuances of licenses due to a clerical error. They're both for the same place, or no?
One has a class 2, one has a class 3. But yes.
So the first, there's 2 stickers on one page, but the first is for the Belden Corporation doing business as Midtown Motors Class 2 license. The square footage was corrected. And the second is for the Belden Corporation doing business as Midtown Motors, a Class 3 license, corrected square footage, and it's a Class 3, not a Class 2. So I would accept a motion to sign both reissuances.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do you need everyone to sign these? Just me.
Liz, how many need to sign the liquor license?
Oops, sorry. Pass it back.
Do we all need to sign this? 3 of us signed it. It's good.
That-
Probably too many.
We don't have any contracts at this time. We did all of those. We have payroll warrants. Are you all done looking at payroll warrants and bill warrants?
Yes. I don't think we need to sign
We used to sign
it. One of these, okay?
You can sign if you like, you don't have to. They like signatures.
They're like signatures. Gotta leave me some space here.
This is all set. I just need to give it to Kevin.
Okay, this has to just go to Kevin.
When you're ready, if someone wants to read the warrants and payroll warrants, that would be helpful.
Who's got it? Go ahead.
There you go. You did a bill with it? Do you have to go in any order? No, just whatever you need. I'll set it up for you.
You want me to read it?
Yeah.
Hold on, I got a question on this one, so let me put it over here. Okay, I'll make a motion, we accept warrant W15-30A for a total of $1,834.74.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Payroll warrant P33
You
for,
need to sign them.
let me see if I can find the total here. For a total of $41,162.39.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can you just sign this one?
Warrant W15-34A, total of $32,636.80.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
And make a motion on payroll warrant P31 for a total of $236,765.28.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Jack, you need to sign this. John, you need to sign this.
There's just one here, right?
Just one, yeah. You can make a pile of that. Or right here, and I'll send it back down.
Ready for another one, Liz?
Yep.
This is school warrant W15-32 for a total of $30,504.26.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
There's another one here, payroll deduction warrant.
Okay, unless,
Oh, we got more here.
not seeing a place to sign this one, so. So we gotta put that aside.
The two with no signatures on them haven't been read into the, I just handed them to Jackie. Those two haven't been read yet or approved.
All right, why don't you read them and then I'll sign it.
Has this one been read?
Just need to sign
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, payroll warrant PD 15/31A for $137,437.41.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, payroll warrant PD 15-31 for a total of $40,822.74.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, a warrant for school bills, W15-30 for a total of $299,896.69.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And no signature
Yeah,
pages.
there's no signature page.
On either of these, we gotta talk to Heather.
Should we wait and see?
No
She
signature
has-
pages on those two? School?
No, schools just usually backup information, supporting documentation.
So do we
Okay,
have to
so we're
sign
good.
it?
There's nothing to sign in them, they just support the other documents.
So we made a motion to accept
Are we
them.
going back down this way? All right,
I'll
so
go to
On
Kevin.
everything
you don't
else.
need to have
And
these
those
back,
two
right?
also.
You don't have to do on those two, they're just part of the documentation for everything else.
It's all
They're
yours,
filed
Kevin.
separately so that the treasurer's office knows to put their material different.
Well, we did make the motion in a second. Do we need to withdraw it, or are we?
You guys get creative sometimes, so,
We
you know.
leave the room, we just go on.
Yes, it happens on occasion, I'm so sorry.
Okay, we have approval of minutes from December 16th, December 30th, and January 13th, all of which are in your packets. Has everyone had a chance to read them? There's more?
One more, looks like.
Oh, sorry,
No problem.
thought we were done. We haven't met in a while.
This is a treasury warrant, W15-32, for a total of $1,183,973.90.
Did you say 1 million?
Yes, I did.
That was a big one.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 What's that?
Have you read the minutes?
Yeah, I'm on board.
Liz, can you just tell me who made the motion and seconded that one?
Jackie made the motion.
And second was?
Ed?
Thank you.
I would, if everyone has read the minutes from December 16th, 30th, and January 13th, I would accept a motion individually to approve them.
I wasn't here for the 13th.
Just for the record, you don't have to be here to approve minutes from that meeting on any board or committee.
You want them individual motions?
Or you could give them to me all at once, whatever is easy.
I'll make a motion, we accept all three.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, oh, we're getting to the end. Just saying. Our next meeting is February 24th at 6:30 in this room. Heather won't be here. March 10th, and March 24th, all at 6:30 unless we change it later. We have a poll hearing from Eversource Wamiko on March 10th, and a public safety complex presentation on February 24th. Where are they going to do that if we're meeting? Oh, with us, not separate meeting. Gotcha. Okay. Yes. All right, February 24th is a Board of Selectmen meeting and a public safety complex presentation. Board of Selectmen meets again on March 10th and 24th. Got that? And just in case anybody's listening now that wasn't listening earlier, the town caucus is March 19th at 7 o'clock in this room. And nomination papers are now available in the town clerk's office if you would like to join us on Tuesday nights or any other night on any other board or committee. And the town election is May 4th, and the annual town meeting is May 19th. At this point, we're going to move into executive session. We are not going to come back into open session. And we're going to go into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, Number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. We're going to go under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, Number 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. And that's it.
Number 6.
Oh, it doesn't say, oh, there it is. And number 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. By roll call vote, please.
Martin, aye.
Moulton, aye.
Call aye.